Raul Smith here with a very important reminder that all 30 blog posts for the If I Were the GM series are now up and available at sports.theclosingtag.com. That includes the two NBA Finals teams. Also, I encourage everyone to go on to the other blogs for the closing tag by accessing the little hamburger menu in the upper right hand corner and go explore. Go look at all the other blogs that we have featured. We're going to be regularly updating those on a regular basis now. So definitely catch up and read up and enjoy. And now to your regularly scheduled programming. Before we get started, I did want to go ahead and send my heartfelt condolences to the family of Donald Sutherland, one of the best actors in Hollywood at one point in time. I don't remember a whole lot that he was in outside of the Hunger Games, but that could just be me being foggy brained from waking up, as late as I was. But I do know Donald Sutherland was a tremendous actor. I know that he also did a lot of work as far as in the community and whatnot. So I know that he's touched a lot of lives, not just with his acting ability, but also with his kindness outside of Hollywood. So rest in peace, Donald Sutherland.
Following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. This is the Are We Not Entertained part of the Closing Tag Network.
All right, fam. I hope you have your popcorn bucket ready, and I hope that you're sitting down and you're not driving somewhere, because this is gonna be a whopper of an episode of Are We Not Entertained, part of the Closing Tag Network. So very recently, I finally caught up with and finished the series Star Trek Discovery. And I didn't want to make a 20 to 30 minute diatribe about toxic fandoms and the negative effects that they're having on various properties. I didn't want to make this about that. So I'm going to start this episode with a review of Star Trek Discovery. And if you have not seen any of Star Trek Discovery from season 1 up to season 5, I did want to mention that this is going to contain very minor spoilers. So, if you don't want to be spoiled on Star Trek Discovery, stop the podcast, go watch, go take care of that, and then come back. So, and this isn't going to be spoiler heavy. I promise. This is just going to be, there's going to be some spoilers here and there, but other than that, there's not going to be a whole lot. I'm going to try my best to not have hardly any spoilers. So if you're not familiar with the storyline, Star Trek Discovery starts in the Kirk timeline. Well, pre-Kirk timeline. And Discovery is not even in the first, I'd say, 2 episodes of the series. first two episodes of the series, we see a ship commanded by Captain Philippa Georgiou, played by the new Star Trek queen, in my opinion, Michelle Yeoh. And this particular ship is tasked with the very difficult responsibility for trying to figure out why Klingon ships are attacking Federation outposts. One of the subordinate officers, a young woman by the name of Michael Burnham, who eventually becomes the lead of the show, calls into question what it is that they're able to do as far as, trying to reason with the Klingons. Her opinion is that the Klingons really can't be handled all that well. And without going into heavy spoilers, what happens is that they try to negotiate with the Klingon chancellor at the time. I can't remember his name. And Captain Georgiou ends up getting killed. And Burnham is held responsible for, not only the death of Philippa Georgiou, but also for starting the war with the Klingons. So right out of the gate, we're starting hot and heavy, right? Burnham ends up becoming a fugitive, ends up becoming a convicted felon. Burnham is then transported at the request of Captain Lorca to the USS Discovery. That's where the name of the show comes from. This particular ship is unique in that with all the ships in Star Trek, they work off what's called dilithium, which is a very, hot commodity for a lot of warp traveling ships. With Discovery, they're more traveling based off of mushroom spores in space. And they're able to use what's called a spore drive that allows them to transport pretty much anywhere. They just have to figure out where they're going and then be like, okay, beep, boop, boop, off they go. And they're there within an instant. So if, let's just hypothetically say, say, the Borg or the Jem'Hadar or any number of other baddies from Star Trek lore ended up having their own spore drive, and they could instantaneously transport their ships and their troops from, say, the Gamma Quadrant over to Earth without having to go through all the trouble of going through the wormhole and going through all the Federation space and whatnot. They're able to go like that. That would be a pretty bad thing. So this Federation ship, Discovery, that has this spore technology ends up becoming a problem for the Klingons. And won't bore you with the details, but there are reasons, some very not healthy reasons, that Lorca decided to reinstate Michael Burnham into Starfleet. Lorca ends up getting killed. And Discovery is then assumed command by Saru, who's a much friendlier, much more wholesome captain, who is a Kelpian. Kelpians are a new alien species that were just introduced into Star Trek through Discovery. Somewhere in there, somewhere in all that chaos, the Discovery crew also encounters the crew of a much more familiar, much more famous Starfleet ship, the USS Enterprise, captained by Christopher Pike, who even in this case was played by Anson Mount, only without the crazy hair. Okay, some people call it crazy, some people call it magnificent, so we'll just call it what it is. Anyway, so Pike and his crew, including Uma, number one, and I can't remember who else was on there at the time, but we don't yet meet, any of the other cast members like Uhura or Scotty or anybody like that. Not yet, anyway. And without going too heavy into spoilers or too heavy into details, there is an artificial intelligence named Control that is out to pretty much destroy all biological life. Basically, think the Borg, but more nanotech rather than human-sized tech. So Control tries to wipe out all of humanity, all of biological life throughout the entire universe. And Discovery ends up being in the middle of this massive war within the Federation, within Starfleet. And without, again, going into too heavy details, Discovery then finds a way to disable Control and then send Control off into a far distant part of time and space. While at the same time, Discovery themselves transports through time to the 31st century, so 900 years after Picard's time. Discovery and any mention of any of the crew members is hereby declared by the Federation as kind of a no-no. Like, if you even mention the name Michael Burnham or the name Discovery within the Federation, you are automatically disbarred from Starfleet and you're held into court-martial and you basically are exiled from the Federation entirely. Kind of pretty heavy, serious shit. And once they transport through time to the far distant future, they discover that all Star Trek or Starfleet travel was restricted due to an event called the Burn. The Burn, basically what happened was that all dilithium-based starships went boom. They exploded. And from there, they end up rebuilding the Federation, end up reintegrating not only Earth into the Federation, because in this timeline, Earth is no longer a part of the Federation that they helped build. And they also reintegrate the former Vulcan, which is now called Navarre. And from there, they end up taking down not only the Orion Syndicate, which is still a problem, apparently 900 years later, but they also take down, well, not really take down, but they negotiate a peace with a species called Species 10C, which is from a far distant part of the galaxy. Like if Earth and all the Federation is on one side of the galaxy, then the Species 10C is clear on the other side. Like even further than, Deep Space Nine or Voyager traveled to. So from there, as we go into this season, the season 5. Again, trying not to go into too much spoilers, but the goal of this whole season was to find some technology that was created by this group called the Progenitors. Now, if you remember, there was a Star Trek Next Generation episode that touched on this very briefly. And the great Salome Gems, may she rest in peace, was, the head of the Progenitors during that episode. And they make mentions of what happened in that episode throughout the entire season of Discovery, even name dropping Picard a couple times. And without going again into too much detail, too much spoilers, the entire 10-episode track is basically a race between Discovery and the Breen to gain control of this technology. And during the last episode, during episode 10, the season and what would end up being the series finale, you could tell that there's a cutoff point of where the original episode ended. Like, it ended on the whole, okay, this is where we're leaving off to pick up in season 6. Except one problem, there's not a season 6. So they end up adding this 20-minute epilogue to the end of the episode. And again, I'm not going into spoilers, so leave it at that. Now, for me as a Star Trek fan, let me start off by saying this, because I am a Star Trek fan. I mean, have you met me lately? In case you weren't watching on video, I was just holding up my vest that has a Star Trek Delta insignia on it. It's my favorite vest because it has all the things, including extra pockets. So, let me just start off by saying, as a Star Trek fan, I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed it more than I did Voyager, more than I did Enterprise. Okay, maybe not more than Enterprise. Enterprise was enjoyable with the exception of introducing the Borg, and with the exception of that thing that they showed for some reason after the series finale of Enterprise. I guess some people call that the true series finale. I don't know. I am not one of them. I call it an abomination into nature, but we'll leave that alone. But as a Star Trek fan, I enjoyed Discovery. Did I enjoy it as much as Next Gen? No. Did I enjoy it as much as Deep Space Nine? No. Did I enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying Strange New Worlds or Lower Decks? No. But I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was absolute dog shit. I didn't think it was trash. I didn't, go on social media bashing it every chance I got. But I enjoyed it. Now, I will get into the toxic fandom here in a minute, but let me preface that rant with the following. There is good and bad from Star Trek Discovery. I'm going to start off with the bad, and then I'll lay in some good. Okay? Okay. I think the story, while overall it was really good, there was a lot of pacing issues, especially in those first 2 seasons. We probably could have done with less mirror universe episodes. We probably also could have done less with Klingon fuckboy. I can't remember his name, but he was the guy that disguised himself as a human officer to win over Burnham and then fuck everybody over. Could have done without that episode, without that story, to be honest. You could have told the story just as well without him. I mean, I see why they included him in there, but he didn't need to be in there. I'm just going to say it right now. We could have done without the whole Lorca is secretly into Burnham, and that's why he, requested her to be onto the Enterprise, or not Enterprise, but Discovery. Could have done without that, but again, I see where they were going with it. Like, that was her in. That was her way in, back into Starfleet, back into, being in a command position. Which ultimately ends up being her entire story arc throughout the entire series. I also could have done without a lot of season 4. Like, I got what they were going for, but at the same time, season 4 to me felt like a drag. That was part of the reason why I was hesitant to get into season 5 in the first place. I was a little worried that season 5 was going to end up being the same way. But then once I started getting into it, once I started watching it, I was like, okay, now we're back to where we need to be pacing wise. So the pacing of the show probably could have done a lot better. The story writing probably could have done a lot better. I was not a huge fan of, again, Klingon fuckboy, or the girl that ended up being the Chancellor for the Klingons. I could have done without Lorca. I could have done without the whole AI is out to destroy us thing, which has been beaten into the ground numerous times, even in Star Trek, by the way. But now that we've got all the bad out of the way, let me touch on the good before I get started on toxic fans. Sonequa Martin Green. I'm going to say it right now. It has nothing to do with her race. It has nothing to do with her gender. It has nothing to do with anything other than the simple fact that she was brilliant as a lead in this show. I don't care what anybody says. I would put her up there with the greats. She deserves a seat at that table. She deserves a seat with Patrick Stewart, with Avery Brooks, with Kate Mulgrew, with Scott Bakula. All these guys. She deserves to be at that table. And I believe it was Patrick Stewart that said it himself. He was like, I don't know if I could have even done it better as Picard. Now, that may just be him, placating to the younger audience, but, we'll leave that alone. So, Captain Michael Burnham deserves to be mentioned among the greats. I truly believe that. I truly believe Saru and ultimately Rayner, who shows up in this last season, were both excellent seconds behind Burnham. And I think that they knocked it out of the park. Doug Jones, if he doesn't win at least one award for his acting what are we even doing here? He really knocked it out of the park with his character of Saru. I really believe that. And I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that he seems like a much nicer version and much more relatable version of Bashir. But out of all the Star Trek doctors, we're talking about Bones and Crusher and Bashir and the Hologram and Phlox and all these doctors, even Mbenga. If there was one doctor character that I would go to see on a regular basis as a primary care physician, it would be Hugh Culber. And again, I am not taking color or race into the equation. I am basically stating as a relatable and, caring physician, he seems more down to earth and more relatable than all the other doctors in Star Trek. And yet, for some reason, he's also just as smart. And I can't remember the guy's name that plays him, but Wilson Cruz, that's his name. Thank you. Wilson Cruz really knocked out of the park with that character, in my opinion. And a lot of the supporting cast, so we're talking about, Adira and Stamets and Awoshikun and Detmer and all these other characters, they also played their parts brilliantly. The acting on this show was top notch. And can I say, for the record, that I have a new favorite crush. Don't worry. There's still room in my heart for Jadzia and for Kira and for Crusher and for all these other, amazing women in Star Trek lore. But they need to make some room. And they need to make some room for Tilly. I am silly for Tilly. So, we got that out of the way. Let's talk. So, this entire 5-season run for Discovery, we have heard nothing from particular segments of the Trek fan base who may or may not actually be Star Trek fans. Let's just, throw that in there too. I've heard nothing from these fans online, but, oh, this isn't new. This isn't the good Trek. New Trek is trash. New Trek is woke. Why is it so woke? My Trek was never woke. And yes, there's a reason I'm doing that voice, by the way. And it's for the reason you think. I'm sorry, but do you even watch Star Trek, or do you just like Star Trek for the fighting and the space battles and all that shit? I mean, don't get me wrong, that's part of the reason I fell in love with Star Trek too. But I liken Star Trek to having a cake. Particularly a cake with fruit filling. Like actual fruit filling, not gelatinous shit. Yes, the space battles and the fighting and the conflict, all that is the icing. All that is the delicious, yummy chocolate icing on top. But then once you get to the core, once you get to the filling, once you get to the good stuff, the dialogue, the interpersonal conflicts, the character building, the wokeness, as we're calling it, apparently. all of that is just as good. It's like biting into a chocolate-covered strawberry and then complaining about the strawberry. You know? You want your space battles, go watch space battles clips on YouTube. If you want your, fighting without the interpersonal conflict and the calling yourself into question and trying to figure out if you're even good enough and, all the wokeness, as you're calling it, go watch that. There's no reason that you can't take all the stuff that you enjoy out of Star Trek and go watch that on a loop for the rest of time and let the rest of us enjoy what this presents. I'm going to lay out some examples and you tell me if this is just a new Trek problem or if this is a you problem. So in the original series, we're going all the way back to 1966. We're just barely out of the civil rights movement. There is an episode where there are two warring factions of an alien race that are on the Enterprise. The two delegates from each side are on the Enterprise with Kirk. And one alien has white on one side and black on the other. The other one has that flipped, black on one side, white on the other. And this is an allegory. In case you're not smart enough to pick up on it, I'm going to spell it out for you. This is an allegory for black versus white. This is an allegory and a message from the showrunners, from Gene Roddenberry himself, the golden god of Star Trek himself. This is a message from him saying, stop being racist assholes to each other. There is another episode. I can't remember if it's the same one or a different one. But some crew member, some unnamed crew member that I don't think we see again for the rest of the series. He's not even mentioned in anything Trek related going forward. Talks about something, I can't remember. And Kirk goes over to him and says, look, if you want to have bigotry and if you want to have racism in your heart, go do it in your quarters. Go do it. There's no room on my bridge for that shit. He didn't say it like that, but he should have. But 1960s TV standards, we'll leave it be. Next Generation. I encourage everybody listening to this that still thinks it's a new Trek problem to go watch YouTube clips of famous Captain Picard speeches. There's an entire 10, 11 minute long clip or series of clips on YouTube. I've seen it because I've looked it up. There is a 10, 11 minute long clip of just some of his absolute best speeches where he talks about slavery. He talks about, oppression. He talks about all these different things that's apparently woke. And I'm using air quotes every time I say that word because there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that here in a minute. Deep Space Nine. We literally had a character, Jadzia Dax, my queen, go from Curzon Dax, male, to Jadzia Dax, female. Not only does she correct a Klingon when they greet her as Curzon. Like, no, it's Jadzia now. Not only that, but they flip on a dime. Oh, Jadzia! Come here, my friend. You know? And then on top of that, that same character, Jadzia Dax, has what many consider, myself included, to be the first same-sex kiss in television history. I remember the outrage like it was yesterday here in Utah. Like, there was legitimate concern that the Fox affiliate, the affiliate here that was running the syndication for Deep Space Nine at the time, there was a concern that they were going to pull the show from the airs, from syndication, over that scene alone. So don't give me that fucking bullshit about how it's only New Trek that's woke. I mean, even going as far as, Enterprise. We literally had the Kirk of that show, Commander Trip Tucker, get pregnant. Yes, a man got pregnant on that show. Second or third episode, I can't remember which one. So again, save all the New Trek is the problem bullshit, because that's not true. And since we're on the topic of New Trek, how come is it that we never hear any of these dweebs complain about Strange New Worlds? How come we never hear any of these dweebs complain about Lower Decks? By the way, there's a same-sex couple on that show too. I believe it was, what's her name? Mariner. And her girlfriend. Not, what's her name, but the other one. So, debunking the whole thing about how it's a New Trek problem. No, you just don't like shows that are different from what you're used to. It's the same argument with all these people, and I've been guilty of this in the past before too. So don't come at me with your hate at Raul@theclosingtag.com or in the comment section about how I'm, sitting up high and looking down on all of you assholes. No. I'm guilty of this too. The whole, they took my favorite thing from my childhood and now they're ruining it. It's the same concept. It's the same thought process. You're not open to change. You're not open to new things. And regardless of how you feel about Discovery, about any of the plots, about any of the stories, about any of the characters, without Discovery, we don't have Strange New Worlds. I'm sorry that you can't accept that, but it is the truth. Without Discovery, we don't have Picard. Without Discovery, we don't have Lower Decks. I will go to bat for the impact that Discovery has had on this new generation of Star Trek. Because without Discovery, without Michael Burnham walking so that Pike and Boimler and all these other characters can run, I don't think we get any of that stuff. Alex Kurtzman took a major gamble on bringing Star Trek back to television after the success of the first two J.J. Abrams movies. He took a major gamble, and guess what? That gamble paid off big time. Regardless of what anybody online says, Star Trek Discovery deserves to be in that same conversation as any of those other shows. Again, I would probably put it, I'm just doing some rudimentary math here, I would say it's probably my fourth, maybe fifth favorite Star Trek. I would definitely put Deep Space Nine at 1. That's the king for me right there. Strange New Worlds creeping in at number 2, just kind of edging along. I mean, then again, I'm hesitant to hold it in any high regards because I've done that with shows before and they've let me down tremendously. No names mentioned, Game of Thrones. But Next Generation's up there too. 2 or 3, depending on my mood. Now I put Discovery underneath those two. And Lower Decks is kind of teetering on that same precipice with Discovery. So, all the people that are throwing their hands in all a huffy buff over, the relationship between Stamets and Culber, all the people that are throwing their hands up in the air in a hufflepuff over Adira refusing to be considered a he or a she, insisting that everybody calls them they, instead of he did a good job or she did a good job. Oh, they did a good job. Pronouns matter. I don't care if you think that's a woke thing. Regardless of how you feel about any of that stuff, regardless of how you feel about how Michael Burnham shouldn't be captain because insert thing that may or may not be racist or sexist here. I want to challenge everybody that's listening to this. Outside of those 3 main things, give me one good reason. That has nothing to do with wokeness. That has nothing to do with anything that is your own prejudicial, basis. Give me one reason why Discovery shouldn't be in the top 5 of Star Trek shows. One. Just one. That doesn't involve woke. You know what people that use that term remind me of? Or you know what that indicates to me whenever anybody uses that term now? Whenever anybody uses the term woke nowadays, it indicates to me that you either A, lack the intelligence to articulate what it is that you don't like about the show, or B, you're afraid to tell us exactly why you don't like the show because you're afraid it will pit you or indicate to the rest of us that you're either a racist, a sexist, or a bigot. Tell me I'm wrong. Please, comment section, Raul at theclosingtag.com. Tell me I'm wrong. And this isn't just a Star Trek thing. I'm noticing the exact same thing with people complaining about any IP these days. The Last of Us. Widely regarded now as the second best video game adaptation of all time behind Fallout. People don't like The Last of Us because of the one episode between Bill and Frank. That's it. That's it. And they complain that the show's gone woke now. They turned the video game adaptation woke. Okay, what's woke about it? Well, they just made it woke. Okay. Whatever. And I refuse to engage in that civil or uncivil discourse. I refuse. I absolutely refuse. Star Trek. People are complaining the exact same shit about Star Wars, rather. People are making the exact same complaints about this new show, The Acolyte. Now, I have had civil conversations and discussions with Star Wars fans. I keep confusing the two IPs. I've had civil discussions with Star Wars fans about their dislike and their, disdain for this show, The Acolyte. And when I talk to them about it, and they present legitimate arguments as to why the show is not good, that to me is more of okay, I'm willing to listen to this person out. I'm willing to hear them out and, see what they have to say. And then I hear what they have to say, and it's like, okay, I get it. I get that. I'm still going to watch it eventually. Maybe in a couple months at this rate. Okay, maybe not a couple months at this rate. Maybe more like a year. But you get my point. The Boys. Now, there's a little bit of an interesting conversation or controversy, rather, concerning The Boys. And the showrunner and the lead actor. Both saying, yeah, this show is woke. You can either bitch about it or get over it. And all these plebes, all these fucking, empty-headed dumb fucks, to steal a phrase, that are complaining about The Boys being woke now. Where the fuck have you been for the last 3 seasons? This show has been built entirely to make fun of you. Sorry to burst your bubble. And now people are making the same complaints about Inside Out 2, a Disney movie, a fucking Disney movie. Intended for kids. And they're bitching about how, again, without going into spoilers, about how the lead character has a crush on a woman. Granted, they're both women. Okay, young women, whatever. She has a crush on another girl, apparently. And when fact checkers and reviewers went to watch the movie and report back, they basically said, no, she doesn't. That's in your head. There's no indication whatsoever that Riley and this other girl have a thing going on. There's no indication that Riley even has feelings outside of professional respect and admiration for this other woman. So what are you complaining about? The optics of the thing? Oh, right. It's because she's playing a man's sport in field hockey, and women aren't supposed to do that. Women aren't supposed to play man sports. Okay, whatever. That's why I don't take these people seriously anymore, because they shouldn't be. Period. And if you're using that term, woke, to describe why you don't like any of these shows, Do us both a favor. Stop watching the podcast. Stop listening to the podcast. Stop watching the podcast. Stop supporting the podcast. We don't need you. Everybody else, more than welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Bring it in. I don't care to placate my content and my rants and my feelings and thoughts to a subsection of deviants who are more concerned about what's inside a young child's pants than they are what's inside their character, what's inside their heart. I have more than enough reasons to not placate my content to a group of people that would rather judge a book by its cover than by the pages that are inside. Okay? Just so we're clear, crystal clear on all of that. You want to complain about how this podcast just became woke? Go right ahead. Might actually give me some more views. So don't bother, coming to me and complaining to me about how this thing is woke, or this thing is woke, or this thing is woke, this thing is woke. Now, I will meet you halfway on something. I don't understand why the people behind the movie The Little Mermaid, the live action version, decided to make Ariel a black woman as opposed to the young redhead that we were initially introduced to back in the 90s. I don't get it. But that's not the reason why I haven't watched it. That's not the reason that I refuse to watch it. I don't refuse to watch it. If my daughter wanted to watch it one of these days and have me watch it with her, give me a bucket of popcorn and we're good. I will sit there and I will enjoy it with her. See, unlike all of you that complain about wokeness in media or whatnot, I actually enjoy a lot of this stuff. I don't see Stamets and Culber having a, on-screen relationship and think, ew, gross, butt stuff. No, I think that's beautiful. I think love, no matter what is the context, okay, maybe some context, but love is a beautiful thing, regardless of if it's man and man, woman and woman, man and woman, man and two women, two men and a woman. Love is love. Now, when it involves children, that's a different entirely different problem altogether, but we'll leave that alone. So, in short, just to recap. New Trek, good. New Trek, very good. You, bad. Toxic fans are what's killing these new shows. Not lazy writing, not wokeness, none of that shit. It's the toxic fans. And I've learned a long time ago that if I want to enjoy something, and if I want to go watch a movie or watch a TV show or watch whatever it is that I'm looking to enjoy. That extends to video games too, by the way. I'm not going to solely rely on the opinions of others to formulate my own opinion. I am going to enjoy what I'm going to enjoy based on my feelings, based on my intuition. It doesn't have anything to do with who thinks it's woke or whatever the context is. So, enjoy what you want to enjoy. I don't care. It's not my life. I'm going to enjoy what I want to enjoy. You should go enjoy what you want to enjoy. I mean, yes, I still want you to come back and listen to some of these other show reviews that I've got going on. I still need to watch the last 4 episodes of Invincible. I still need to watch season 4 of The Boys. I still need to watch Night Court season 2. Yes, I'm into Night Court. Always have been. Even as a kid. Don't ask questions. It's better that way. That has to do with late night syndication and me staying up later than my mom was allowing. But again, we'll leave that alone. And, I'm going to enjoy what I want to enjoy. You enjoy what you want to enjoy. I want you back here. I want you to continue to listen to the podcast and watch me on YouTube and Facebook. Like, share, and comment. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. That way a new video drops, then you are informed. Also leave a review on Spotify. I still want you back here. But go enjoy what you want to enjoy. Don't rely on dweebs and toxic assholes and Kens on Facebook. Don't rely on negative Nancys in social media land or on X or whatever. And I've got a whole rant on X lined up and ready to go for News Desk, but we'll leave that alone. Go enjoy what you want to enjoy. Don't listen to people's negative comments or negative influence. And then if there's something that you don't like about the show, do everyone a favor. Don't just segregate the whole fucking thing to, well, I didn't like it because it was woke. Inform us why. Tell us why. Don't get lazy. Don't get complacent. Don't just parrot shit you hear from other people. Tell everybody why it is you don't like a thing. Is it the pacing of the show? Is it the writing? Is it the acting? Is there a particular character you don't like? Lay it all on the table. There's no reason to keep using this tired, lame ass shit as an excuse for not liking something. There just isn't. And if you're one of those people that use that lame ass shit, I'm not listening to you. Plain and simple. I'm just not. But hopefully you've enjoyed my brief review of Star Trek Discovery, and hopefully you've enjoyed my even longer rant about people being jerks. But it is about that time. I'm going to go ahead and log off. Like I said, leave a review on Spotify, like, share, comment on Facebook, and on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And I want to thank everybody for listening, for liking, for downloading, for donating, for doing everything you can to help support this endeavor. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. I noticed the views have been going up, up, up on all the reels, which is amazing. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, try not to be an asshole to people. Okay? Can we just agree on that? Thanks. And also, remember to include your closing tags. Let's fly.
This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.